Hello! Thank you for taking the time to view this video presentation on peer learning and how it can lead to an increase in participation by students with high-intensity needs in the general education classroom. This presentation was developed and is presented by me, Abby Hammonds, a third-year occupational therapy student at the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center. Before we begin, I'd like you to pause the video and click the pre-assessment link in the description below to take a survey on your understanding of peer learning. The survey should take about a minute, so go ahead and do that now. So what is peer learning? Well, there are two general definitions. One is students learning from and with each other in both formal and informal ways. The emphasis is on the learning process, including the emotional support that learners offer each other as much as the learning task itself. Another definition is the use of peers without disabilities to provide academic support to students with disabilities. These strategies require peers without disabilities to actively promote the participation of students with disabilities. Peer learning is not a new concept. It is deeply rooted in psychological theories, especially in those that address cognitive development. For example, Vygotsky's theory that learning development can progress faster through social interaction. There are several key components of this theory, such as scaffolding, or the idea of having a more knowledgeable other to support learning. Similar to the way scaffolding supports buildings, once the student's skills have developed sufficiently, the support is removed. Language acquisition is the idea that students need to develop the language to be able to discuss academic concepts. By interacting with peers in an educational manner, students can develop this language. Finally is the concept of gaining multiple perspectives through interactions with peers. This not only helps students understand new topics, but also helps them respect and appreciate difference between individuals. There are several models of implementation for peer learning. This list, though long, does not fully cover all of the different models that can be used for peer learning, but can give you a good place to start if you're looking for ways to implement peer learning into your classroom. For the purpose of this video, I will give an example of how to implement the peer learning concept of cooperative learning. Cooperative learning is working together in groups to collaborate on an assignment. The first step is to set up your classroom for collaboration. The best strategy here is to set up desks in pods or desk clumps to promote an interactive environment and encourage students to communicate and work together. Each pod should include a diverse group of students. So let's meet our students. Each of these students are in the 5th grade at a local public school. I am choosing a grade for the purpose of this presentation, but peer learning concepts can be implemented into any classroom with any age of student. Timothy's favorite subject is reading. He is easily distracted and has a difficult time with math. Kaya's favorite subject is math. She is very outgoing and loves to interact with just about anyone and is great at making others feel included. She has a difficult time with social studies. Gracie's favorite subject is science. She is helping in nature and has a way of assisting others without making them feel embarrassed for not knowing something. She has trouble writing long paragraphs. Chris's favorite subject is social studies. He is more quiet and timid than his peers and usually prefers to work alone. And he has trouble with science. As you can see, each of these students have strengths and weaknesses, but their strengths, whether social or academic, can be used to help others in the group. I'm going to add one additional component for the purpose of this video. Timothy is a student with high-intensity needs. He has spastic monoplegic cerebral palsy, meaning that he has difficulty using his right hand. He also has a learning disability. Timothy spends 75% of the time in the general education classroom and 25% of the time in the special education classroom for extra assistance according to his IEP. Research shows that using peer learning can positively impact students academically and socially, especially students with high-intensity needs. I will discuss this information further later in the video, but let's continue with how to implement the peer learning model of collaborative learning into the classroom. Step 2 is to create a well-structured activity. This activity should be something that can be done as a group, and you should provide all of the needed materials to complete the activity. Consider using something like a manipulative in a math activity. It is also important that you explain the task thoroughly, as well as explain what the cooperative goals of the students are. This will allow you to create a scenario in which the students feel responsible for one another. If one student sinks, they all sink. Remember, this is a group assignment and they must all work together. Finally, during the activity, make sure to monitor the groups as they work and be readily available if the students need help. Though they can ask you for help, encourage them to ask their group members before they come to you. This will promote working together and further push peer learning concepts. Here is an example of a math activity. The materials needed for this activity are blue, yellow, and green squares. Each student is given a card with a portion of the problem, such as there are fewer green squares than blue squares. The only rule is that students cannot show their cards to each other. They must read the clue out loud to the rest of the group. The clue can be read several times, and the clues do not have to be read in any particular order. Each of the students must have knowledge of mathematical terms, but they are also able to work together to figure out the meaning of the words and solve the problem. Working together like this can benefit the students and build a support system within the classroom. The following slides discuss the benefit for each type of student in the group. Let's first discuss how peer learning can help a student like Timothy. The peer learning model can increase inclusion and classroom participation of a student with high-intensity needs by creating an organic support system within the classroom. It can also help the student achieve academic goals as well as IEP goals. Timothy is an easily distracted student. Most students become distracted due to lack of interest in a topic. But peer learning can make learning fun and exciting, helping the student be more task-oriented as well as feel motivated to learn. A direct result of being task-oriented is completing assignments more efficiently and thoroughly, and the student will have an improved attitude towards school and learning. Next, let's discuss how peer learning can benefit the general education students. Peer learning can increase classroom participation as well as assignment completion, similar to the way it did when we were discussing students with high-intensity needs. Studies also show that peer learning produces academic engagement that endures over time, as well as increased social relationships between peers. Finally, it can produce a better understanding of individual differences. Recently, when talking with the 7th grade student about the concept of peer learning, she said that her experience with it has taught her that people with disabilities deserve respect and just need a little help sometimes, like everyone else. This benefit is a lasting life lesson that will persist long past being in school. Lastly, let's discuss how peer learning can benefit you as an educator. As I've said before, peer learning can increase the participation of students as well as increase their engagement in your lesson. Sometimes it is difficult to get resources or to get enough resources to make your lesson interactive. Peer learning promotes the sharing of resources. Peer learning also promotes independence in learning. A primary form of learning comes from acknowledging the skills of others and seeking their help, especially in worldly situations. Peer learning can promote this concept. Finally, peer learning promotes timeliness. As I mentioned before, students will be able to complete their work more efficiently, giving you more time to grade their assignments. It can also make teaching concepts more efficient because the students are retaining information quickly from application and open discussion of concepts. Here are the references that I used to put the presentation together. And I want to thank you again for taking the time to view this video presentation. If you wouldn't mind, please click the post-assessment link in the description below to help me gather data on the effectiveness of this presentation. If you have any questions regarding the content of this presentation or want to know more, please feel free to email me at abigail-hammonds@ouhsc.edu.